Question. In a physics experiment, a ball is released from rest and it falls toward the ground. The timer was not paying attention but estimates that it took 1.5 seconds for the ball to fall the last 32 meters. A. Calculate the velocity of the ball when it is 32 meters above the ground. B. Calculate the total displacement of the ball. So the ball falls from rest here, and it falls down, falls here. Then continue falls down, falls to the ground. So the distance here, this side, this section is 32 meters. We define the down direction as the positive direction. So for the last 32 meters, the displacement is just 32 meters. And the acceleration is 9.8 meter per second squared. And the final velocity is the result velocity when the ball hits the ground. This velocity equals the initial velocity. The initial velocity is the velocity when the ball is 32 meters above the ground. So the final velocity equals the initial velocity plus the acceleration multiply the time interval delta t for the last 32 meters. So for the last 32 meters, the time interval is 1.5 seconds. So here, this equals the initial velocity plus the acceleration 9.8 multiply the time interval 1.5 seconds, and this equals 14.7 plus the initial velocity. And we know the formula. The final velocity square equals initial velocity square plus 2 multiply the acceleration multiply the displacement. And we put the values in this formula. So the left side is 14.7 plus the initial velocity square equals initial velocity square plus 2 multiply 9.8 multiply displacement 32. And go ahead, the left side is 14.7 square plus 2 multiply 14.7 multiply initial velocity plus initial velocity square equals initial velocity square plus 627.2. And the left side, initial velocity square, can be cancelled with the right side, initial velocity square. At last, we can get that the initial velocity equals 14 meters per second. This is just the velocity when the ball is 32 meters above the ground. Now question B. It asks for the total displacement. Just check this formula again. The final velocity square equals initial velocity square plus 2 multiply the acceleration multiply the displacement. And from this formula, we can get the displacement equals final velocity square minus initial velocity square divided by 2 multiply the acceleration. For the total displacement, the initial velocity is 0, and we know the acceleration. So to find the total displacement, we just need to find the final velocity. The final velocity is the velocity when the ball hit the ground. And from here, we can know that the final velocity just equals 14.7 plus the velocity when the ball is above the ground at 32 meters. So plus here plus 14, and this equals 28.7 meter per second. Now we can use the formula to find the total displacement delta D equals the final velocity square divided by 2 multiply the acceleration and equals 28.7 square divided by 2 multiply 9.8, and this equals 42. The unit is meter and the direction is downward. I do not write the units in the calculation to make it seem simple and neat.